Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, coach, brother, father figure to the young, brother to the elderly, and just all around good guy, John Obolewski. And as promised, a special guest. How are you today, John?
A little overwhelmed with your introduction. Like, wow. Oh man. If I'm ever feeling bad, I know who to call.
There you go.
Uh, well,
Yeah.
Jim, I'm real excited today to be with you and with an incredibly special guest, Jason Holdridge. Jason is pastor of Impact Church in Lowell, Michigan, with a location also in Rockford. And
Mm.
I've known Jason for about 5 or 6 years, and
Mm.
we've become, I think, really good friends and close. And I've been privileged to do a little bit of work with Jason over the years, and I appreciate his journey. And I
Mm.
thought it would be great for our watchers, our listeners, to hear from him, learn from him. And so, Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So, Jason, we always like to ask our guests
Yeah.
when they join us here on the podcast about their faith journey. And so just simply, I wonder if you could take a few minutes to tell us how you came to Christ.
Um, I love telling this story because, it wasn't until I got into college and even into my 20s that I realized how special it was. Um, my mom and dad did not grow up in faith. Loosely, my dad was from Catskill Mountains of New York and a farming family, so they had faith in a sense of belief in God, but it wasn't rooted relationally in their home. And so my mom grew up in a family that didn't have God as a part of it. So they went to Oswego State University together, and somehow got invited to a little Bible study with about five or six
Mm,
other um, people, and it was a pretty
Mm.
fundamentalist Baptist Bible study.
Yeah.
Um, and they came to know Christ, just radically gave their lives to Christ.
mm,
And unlike a lot of people that give their life to Christ in my church, they changed, and they
Mm.
repented. I really don't know how to replicate that here, but you can tell when some people, like the Holy Spirit, just comes and takes over, and they don't go
Yeah.
back. And that was my parents, and they were so radically saved that whatever the Bible study leader said or the first church that they attended, it's like, you just tell us what the Bible says and we'll obey. I don't care if it makes sense
Um,
to us. I don't care if it's wicked conservative. I don't care if it alters our existence. And they did whatever they were told, for the better or the worse. But I didn't know when I was born, my brother was born. My dad was going to go actually into ministry, but then he actually was in the Air Force for a little bit. It was right at the end of Vietnam, and so he was kind of taken off that track. And my brother was born in California. I was born in Colorado on the Air Force bases there. And then they came back home. And long story short, my dad became a Christian school administrator. Um,
hmm.
and so I didn't know I was in a home where my mom and dad just got saved. I just
mm,
always thought the ecosystem was filled with God. I think as I got older and I realized my grandparents just didn't have faith like my parents, and all their siblings didn't have faith like my parents.
Mm.
I started coming to realize, man, my mom and dad, um, they're different, and it changed our family. I say all that because I grew up in a fundamentalist Baptist church, about 80 people, and couldn't listen to syncopated rhythm, and the girls had to wear skirts and culottes, when they're playing
Yeah.
volleyball, wear shorts, even playing basketball in high school. And it was just a really, really oppressive environment in some ways, in other ways,
Mm.
just a beautiful environment. Pastor Pirelli was my pastor. He spoke with lots of fervor. But I really remember my parents love me and they love the Lord, but I got to get out of this church thing. This is just crazy. And I really wanted to get out. I wanted to become a cop, actually, my senior
Mm.
year. Bad boys, what you gonna do when they come for you? And I was like, man, that seems fun, chasing people down, having a gun, you know.
Yeah.
Really, I think what I realized is I want to help people. I had inside my heart. I realized my
Right.
name Jason I came to realize it means healer. And that has
Mm.
always been inside of me. Like I have always cared about people, been emotionally connected to
Mm.
people. Even when I was trying to be too cool for school and a jock and all this stuff, I really cared about people. And so my mom and dad just had one request. They said, if you graduate, can you go to Bible college for just 1 year before you head out to
Mm.
college to become a cop? And because I loved my parents so much and they loved me so much, I was like, I'll do that for you. I wanted to honor them.
Mm.
So I went to Baptist Bible College in Clark Summit, Pennsylvania, which is near Scranton, where Dunder Mifflin is, and The Office was taped.
Yeah.
Put that place on the map. And so went there for a year, and it was in my freshman year that
Mm.
I met some guys that were really cool guys. Like I feel like I grew up in a really nerdy, backward, homeschooly subculture that was just like, I can't do this. Like I want to be normal.
Yeah.
And I met these normal guys that love the Lord that had youth pastors. I never had a youth pastor, and I could just
Mm.
tell they just talked about God relationally. I remember one time I went out with one of my friends, Jeff Rackinator, and we had just met each other, got done having pizza together. It was like a Saturday night, and there was nothing else to do on campus. And we got back to the dorm, and we were talking in the car. He's in the driver's seat, and I was in the passenger seat. And at the end of the night, he's like, "Hey, you want to pray together before, you know?" And I'm like, "I don't. Yeah, sure. I don't. I never prayed with fear. You know, it's like
Yeah.
no parents are making us pray, and I'm not in Christian school, and okay, this is weird." And I remember he just it's weird the things that change your life. But I watched Jeff Rackinator pray, and oh God, just thank you for who you are. Oh God, I just love you so much. I remember opening my eyes, which was a cardinal sin growing up during prayer. And I remember looking at Jeff pray, and I just was like, I want to know the God he's
Mm.
talking to, because that
Mm.
makes sense to me. That feels real. You're not going into operatic auctioneer prayer voice that the deacons would go into before communion. It was like you're still Jeff Rackinator talking to God. I
Yeah.
wonder if I could still be me and be with God. That was
Mm.
what connected. And then as a couple months met more of these people like Buddy Rathmel and Adam Holstrand and Dan Dundor, and it was like, wow, these guys are all staying themselves as
Mm.
disciples of Christ. And then it occurred to me, like, so I wouldn't have to be Pastor Pirelli if I was a pastor. Like I could be me. I actually think there's a lot of people out there that need to meet somebody normal that likes
Mm.
sports and likes culture and likes music and likes laughing and jokes, and that connected with me. I met my now wife my freshman year. Started dating October 20th, and her dad was a pastor, and it
Mm.
just my world. Well, I actually visited her church. It was like I forget how many months in. I visited her church out in Des Moines, Iowa, and their pastor got up, and he was a great pastor. Just illustrations were down to earth and out of this
Mm.
world at the same time. And I'm like, that guy's funny. I love him. And then
Mm.
at Sunday night, they had Sunday night church. And afterward, he played basketball with everybody.
Mm.
And he came
Right.
out and played. I'm like, my pastor would go back to the parsonage and dwell
Yeah.
with the Lord in an ivory tower, and I wouldn't see him all week long. This
Yeah.
guy was out playing basketball, and he was competitive. And I remember this one time he came into the lane and somebody hit him, and he scored the and one, and he started yelling at the guy for just, and I'm like, you can yell at people and care about people. I'm like, I can do this. I literally, the light bulb went
Yeah.
on, like,
Mm.
I can do this. I can be me. And that's when
Right
I
on.
was on the way home from Iowa, leaning in the back seat, looking out the back windshield up at the clouds. And I just like, I'm God, I'm going into ministry.
Right on.
And that was it.
Huh. Now,
That
was the
was it.
pastor wearing shorts at the time he was yelling at people, or was he in long pants, as a
He
good
was
pastor should
wearing
be?
shorts. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was not wearing slacks at the time. He was wearing bona
Yeah.
fide shorts. Yeah, it just, and that throughout college, just, I was like, it was interesting in college. I was drawn to actually go into ministry by my psychology class, not my
Hmm.
theology class.
Interesting.
I just,
Yeah.
came back, and my dorm dad, uh, Mr. Boykin, he was this big 6'8" black guy, and he was my
Yeah.
discipler. Um,
Yeah.
and I came back and I'm like, everyone hates a psychology class. I love it. And he's like, oh, I know why, Jason. I'm like, well, why? He's like, because you love people. Psychology is the study of
Mhm.
people. You love people. And I'm like, it is. I love what make people tick. I love all of these things I'm learning. So it was through psychology. And then all of a sudden it was like theology classes. And yeah, so I graduated, became a youth pastor for 8 years.
Mm.
Um, and just
So
the youth group grew. Yeah. You got a
no,
question in there?
keep going. But I got a question about. I wanted to explore a little bit. You're kind of going right into it.
Yeah.
Like, so out of college, you became a youth pastor. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about being that role and what it was like to be
Yeah.
on staff, things like that. We're very curious to hear that part of the story.
Well, like a lot of youth pastors, I did feel like I knew it all. Um, and so I had a lot to offer. I just got done with Bible college. I mastered God. They told me so. I have a document that said I have, a document that I've passed my orals. I know God. And so you come in and you're ready to change the world.
Yeah.
And there were some things about getting in ministry. I'm like, well, this is different than the book smarts. These kids are wily. I got there
Yeah.
and half of the youth group was going to a Marilyn Manson concert. And I remember I made a blunder. I didn't even know who this person was. And I was like, I don't know. You guys are going to this Marilyn Manson concert. And I don't even know who she is. And I didn't know it was a guy. And
Yeah.
so it was like, everyone laughed. I'm like, what am I doing? I didn't read Plugged In by Focus on the Family, I guess, enough to know what was going on in youth culture. But
Uh,
so I got in youth ministry, and I did have a deep heart for the kids, man. I just wanted them to
yeah.
have a youth pastor like I never had. Somebody to go to their games and just cause God to become real to them by bringing, the cookies down to the bottom shelf. And I started to see how God was using me. Here I am, 22 years old. A lot of them are 16, 15, 14, 18. I wasn't so far beyond them, but I'm like, man, you guys have no idea, how God can change your life. This is who I was, and this is what he did. And just saw the fruit of that. But I think being on staff, boy, I've sent emails back to my pastor several times to apologize.
Mm.
I
Mm.
and I,
Jason,
even in the
what?
last 2 years, I've sent emails back that I was, man,
Uh,
I was incorrigible, and there were some things I thought I knew, and I'm not going to apologize for my passion, but boy, it was misguided, and
So,
I am so sorry.
what were some of those things, that you thought you knew and you didn't? Just maybe one or two things that you like, hey, I know what I'm doing here. I'm going to do this, and then you realize I probably didn't understand what I thought I did.
Well, I mean, I think this is a pretty universal thought is like, man, if I was a senior pastor, this is what I'd
yeah.
do around here, man. And it would just blow up. And you're just thinking, if I was him, man, I wouldn't have done
Yeah.
that. I'd do this. Well, what never occurred to me until I became more of a lead pastor is I never actually wondered what he was doing or not doing. I didn't go in and ask, how have you been lately?
Yeah.
Like, are you doing okay?
Yeah.
No, because he's the lead guy. He's supposed to be asking me that.
Right.
I'm not thinking about who's in his office and when somebody's calling him at night and the different tensions in the church between factions that are occurring. I'm just wondering why he preaches the way he does and why he doesn't understand, this or that about culture and why it's just like dumb. I never explored the fullness of what he was going through at the time as a 38-year-old man, I just was like, this is what I'd do if I was him. And it's like, you don't even know what he does. You don't even know what he's balancing out with his family, with his wife. He's only been in the church for 2.5 years. When you showed up, he's probably up to his nostrils in things. I did not learn from him. I did not come in with the posture of a learner and a leader. And the reason I just messaged him back in the last, I sent him a text. I actually sent a text to the guy who was the lead pastor here of the church that was planted when I came. And I sent he and his wife an apology note this last year too. And I said, I came in here to lead and not to learn. And I just hired a guy, Max, who came in 1.5 years, and he had the posture of a learner and a leader. And I was like, I did not come in with the posture of a learner, and I am sorry. And I did some damage because I came to offer something, not to glean anything. And this is like 8 years prior coming in as a youth pastor. But then it's like I left there. They were pursuing me to come up here at this new church plant. I came in guns a-blazing. I already know how to preach. I already know what works. I grew a youth ministry from 25 kids to 350 kids in a pole barn. I'm not coming here. I'm coming here to help you grow this church. And I know how to do it. What an idiot. Because when you're a lead guy and you get that guy coming in that doesn't integrate in and is really, might have a lot of talent, but is not enculturated and they don't care about learning the culture, it's like, it's a painful experience. So I've had
Jim,
some retro apologizing.
So Jim, I hear Jason as he's sharing this part of the story. There's this lack of teachability. I mean, you're a lead pastor, Jim. Can you? I'd love to hear your thought on that too. I guess I'm interviewing you too today, but I'm just curious what your view has been on all of this.
I did the same thing. I came here 30 years ago knowing the answers to the questions. I thought it's funny that posture of being a learner. I didn't understand. I was raised in the church. I didn't go to Bible college. I got saved at a rock concert, got discipled doing mostly outreach ministry by radical street evangelist type people. Well, now I'm a youth pastor. Now I'm a senior pastor. So I came in and there's a trophy case. We won the chili cook-off in 1979. Like, it's in the way. It's clogged up the hallway. So I threw it away. The whole trophy case with all their vacation Bible school awards and all I didn't realize that them's fighting words, and I started a jihad in my church by throwing away the trophy case. But they were all 10 years old. I mean, all the stuff that was in there was 10 years old. Like, why should we keep it? So I was changing everything. And then one day we were out getting ready for a big outreach on the 4th of July. Got here in March. It's the following July. And a buddy of mine, I'm a veteran, and we're taking on the flag to put up a new flag. He balls up the American flag and he chucks it in the garbage can. Now to a veteran, that's sacrilege. That's a flag. That's the emblem. That's a living thing. It deserves honor, respect. There's a way to dispose of a flag. You don't throw it on the ground and throw it in a garbage can. And it was funny. It was that the Lord used. This good friend of mine, he said, it was funny that the way I just treated that flag is kind of we've been treating all of our traditions around here for the last 6 months. I know they don't mean anything to you, but they mean a lot to us. And so I got up the next Sunday and I did what Jason's talking about. I said, I want to apologize for the attitude, for the forcefulness, for the rapid succession of change. We're still going to do all those things. I just didn't realize what it was costing you for me to come in and change everything. So we're still going to change these things. We're not going back to everything we just got rid of. But I was wrong to have done it the way that I did it. And to their credit, we which were alive and still remained. They forgave me and we moved forward. But I would say I don't think it's a terrible thing, Jason, that you came in guns a-blazing. If you're still guns a-blazing and causing damage everywhere all these years later, that's a bad thing. But I think the way we learn our limitations in society is by hurting people that are honest enough to say that hurt, and then our conscience and say, I'd rather say whoa to a new youth pastor than giddy up to a new youth pastor, because I want them to go for it. If they make mistakes, I can help make mistakes. I can't motivate them as well as I can move them to keep them in the lane. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
I would have loved to have had you on my staff back in the day when you were that person you're now apologizing for. But I think it's a good thing. That ambition, that zeal without wisdom can cause damage, but I, wisdom comes in time. Zeal can never come. So I'll take zeal, a foolish zealot, any day over a wise, slug. So
Yeah, yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I hear what you're
No,
saying.
I like that. Did you just pull out a Church of Sardis quote, strengthen what is alive still remains? I love
Not
that one.
on
Yep. Is
purpose.
that
Not on
you have a
purpose.
reputation of being alive, but you're dead? Strengthen what
I
remains is about to die. For
was
I've
thinking
not
more of
found your
the
deeds
rapture
complete
scripture.
in the sight of God. I love that
Yeah.
verse. I'm like, woo, that's a good one. You slipped that in there unaware, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's a good one. But yeah.
I was thinking
So
that we which are alive and remain will be caught up to with Christ. And that's what I was thinking of out of Thessalonians.
Oh,
But
you're in a totally different one. Yeah, I heard it slip by. I didn't know. I just think I'm totally with you when it comes to like
yeah,
that passion that you can't teach that. You can teach all the
yeah,
tools and you can put a steering wheel on and direct it. And we've had times around here where patiently I'm waiting for that just genuine, passion, that throbbing heartbeat to come, and it just doesn't
yeah.
come. And it's all more like, well, I'm
Mm.
trying to lead leaders and come up with programs and develop systems and structures. I'm like, do you love God and people? Like, I want that oozing out of you. Like, where is
Yeah,
that? It's all,
yeah,
so cerebral. So I'm with you there. I look back and I'm like, man, there was a lot of fruit that came from that passion, but there was some parts of the plain fast and loose that when I look at my senior pastor, I think I had to learn that he had a life and a family and things
yeah,
going on. And it
yeah,
wasn't just me. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like when you're a kid and you look at your parents and they don't know what they're talking about. You can't wait to get out of their home. And then all of a sudden you have
Exactly.
kids.
That's exactly what
Oh
it
my
is. Yeah,
Oh my word. Like I was a
yeah,
kid. Oh my word. Did they stay up with me? Did I drive them nuts? And
yeah,
wow,
Yeah.
it's that kind of stuff hit me as I became
yeah.
a lead pastor. Like, whoa, I got to go back and just make some
That's good.
apologies. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so Jason, you were a youth pastor, and then, at some point, you went into the lead role. I'm wondering, as you went into that lead role, what things maybe surprised you the most about the lead role that you didn't know? I know for a fact, I won't share my side of it, but there were probably at least a dozen things that I was not prepared for that I didn't know came with the role. And boy,
yeah.
was that ever a blast in the face to me. So, what were some of the things that surprised you the most about the lead pastor role?
Yeah. Well, I came here and the church was a year old when I came. A guy by the name of Phil Struckmeyer was leading here. He was the church planter, and I was the number two guy. So I led worship and did some teaching and pretty much anything and everything that was needed, and stayed in that role from 2004. He began to plant other churches through our church and was going out more to do planting, was still the lead guy.
Oh,
And I was doing more of the shepherding here in
Mhm.
Lowell at Impact. So I began to slowly take on more of the lead role here, but I didn't officially come on as the lead pastor until 2011. So
Okay.
that was another season of 7 years of sort of leading from the second chair. If you've ever read that book, that was a good
Mhm.
book for me. How to honor the Lord's anointed, sort of to use sort
yeah,
of the David and Saul thing and be like, man, I want to just do this, but how to honor. And I had to work through pride. I had to work through, again, that learning and leading thing. Um, I had to learn to stay on when I wanted to bail. Like I think I told him a couple times, like I'm probably not going to be here much longer.
yeah,
There was other people like, no, you need to learn how to come and submit. If you're ever going to lead, you must learn to submit to authority. And because
yeah,
I'm an entrepreneur, I love leading, um,
yeah.
and I don't like submitting, and just at a core level. And it was like I
Yeah.
just sensed God saying it probably 2008 or nine, unless you learn to submit, I will never let you lead a church.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's hard. that's hard when you feel confident that you could do things well, better, grow things. And it's like, you need to learn to submit. There's the one passage Jesus, I can't remember if it was the story of that general in the army that wanted him to heal his child. And he basically said to him, I am too a man under authority, where
Yeah.
Jesus said that to him. And I could, just like you can do that, I'm under authority. And there's something like, man, Jesus even functions sort of under authority. I need to learn how to do that well. And so that was just the season where I think the Lord, once he entrusted me like, okay, you're ready to lead, because all the things I was learning from a youth pastor for 8 years, and then that would be 7 years underneath leadership all the way to age 35, 36, was so that when I led, I would never forget what it was like to be led. I would never forget how hard it was to submit. I would never forget the hard place it was to not be understood, or to feel like you were doing things that weren't recognized or appreciated, or to be in your office and the only time the senior pastor visits your office is when you're in trouble. So it's like, I want to visit people's offices when they're doing well or when nothing's going on. So you're learning through negative and positive things. And so it was a boot camp for a long time. It's almost 15 years of being under authority before I was given the reins. I don't know if that answered your questions, but before I go into like, then I started leading in 2011. It was like, no, it was another 7 years. It reminds me of Moses or David or Joseph. You're anointed king. It's another 12 years of being on the run, and you got to write some Psalms and learn a thing or two.
The crucible, right?
It's like Moses is like on the backside of the desert. Even, I was reading through Galatians where it's like Paul gets converted 3 years in Arabia and 17 years before he meets the rest of the disciples. I'm like, I think one thing, if you go back to a youth pastor, you go into ministry, you're like, I want a fast track to get to the place where I'm in charge. And it's like, that in the scriptures is just not. Joseph has the dream, and 12 years later, then he's given, second in command. That stuff I needed to learn whether I liked it or not. So,
And I just think that's such an important point. I think here's how I phrase that. You're going to have to go through some stuff before you get to where God wants you to be. And all of us, Jim, myself, you, almost everybody I know, now I know some exceptions, there's some outliers, have gone through almost 2 decades of preparation for and again, I want to say this the right way, but it was for where we are today. There was a longer training period than we ever imagined. And it was in that where God squeezed us and shaped us and molded us and refined us and did the work that he does. If I was God, I'd have that'd be done in 2 weeks, right? Like that's just how I think. But God has a whole different program for us. So let me just ask you this. What was the most surprising thing when you took the lead role? Just give me one thing that when you became the lead pastor, you thought, oh boy, I wasn't ready for this, right? I was surprised by this.
Well, we're going to be moving into our next podcast if I'm not careful, because this is when my life unraveled and panic attacks started taking over my life. And I went from the incredible, competent, confident, everything I touch turns to gold. Everything I've ever done goes, up and to the right. I'm serious. Like I'd never known a season of decline, not one time. Every year was better than the year before. The first thing that happened is I was like knighted the king of the kingdom. And the church came around me and prayed, and Phil was going off to do church planning for the denomination. The Wesleyan denomination is the tribe I'm a part of. And so I was there, and I'm like, I cannot wait to implement all the things that I've been waiting to implement. And I implemented them. and they didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I did my
Yes.
best to teach about tithing, and nobody gave more money. And we had $328 in the bank and couldn't pay the payroll, and had a church of 700 in 2 weeks. And I tried all of the things to persuade and motivate, and it didn't work. And that scared me right to the marrow. I did not understand what I did not understand. And it was not just that. In every arena, when I tried out my thing, it actually didn't produce what I thought immediately would happen once I was in the saddle. And
That's
then
that's a good teaser
oh,
for the next
man,
episode, because I want to
yeah,
hear the rest of that story. I'm sure our listeners do as well. And then
because
the effect on your
took
mental health.
it didn't take more than a month and a half
Mm-hmm.
for the walls to cave in, and for me to
Right on.
meet a brand new Jesus and a brand new Jason.
Love it.
I didn't know Jesus the way I know him now, and I did not know me the way I know me
Right
now.
on.
So, yep.
I've heard Dave Ramsey say that I met Jesus on the way up, but I got to know him on the way down. That statement. Hey, I think our time is up,
Yeah.
John. But
Yeah.
I just think that this has been a great session for everybody, whether you're a business leader or you're a parent or your kids in a youth group or you're a youth pastor or senior pastor, because the perspective of this is excellent. I just want to say one thing before we close, and that is that if you're in the second seat, dreaming of the day that you're in the first seat, I don't think that's an evil thought. As a matter of fact, even seeing fault in your leader, I mean, pointing it out and being critical and being an Absalom, that's a problem. But I think that the part of the stage of spiritual maturity is adolescence, where you do kind of think you know it all, and you do want to be the adult. When I'm a mommy, I'll never give my kids a bedtime. Well, let's wait till you're mommy, then we'll talk about it later. So that we're not supposed to be 40 years old living in our parents' basement. There's supposed to be a discontent somewhere on our journey where we want to take that next step. So if you're there, be careful not to call that sin. At the same time, don't sin because you have that thought. You can be critical. That's a sin. You can cause division. That's a sin. But having dreams that surpass the dreams of your senior leadership is not a sin. It's an ambition. It has to be tempered, it has
Yeah.
to be measured. But your time will come, and God help you when it does, because you'll live in interesting times. So, John, is that good that I ended it that way? Do you want to end it with anything else before
Yeah,
we?
and Jason, we want you to hang around. We want to record another one with you.
Oh,
I'm
geez.
very interested.
Yeah.
Next podcast, Jason is going to unpack some of his struggle with anxiety,
Yeah.
and I was privileged to walk with Jason through a lot of that, and
Mhm.
and I have seen him grow dramatically in 5 years, and I want you all who are watching and listening to come back, because his story
Yeah.
is amazing, and I think it will be very inspirational to you. So, Jim, with that, would you go ahead and wrap us
Yeah.
up?
Hey, as always, whatever we can do for you at Converge. If we can do it, we will. If we can't do it, I bet you we know somebody who can. But convergecoach.com, little link at the top there. Just want to start a conversation, 30 minutes with John, myself, one of the team. We'd love to spend that time with you just to hear how we can help and what we can do. In the meantime, this podcast drops on a Tuesday. And if you're in leadership, you're in ministry, and you're still in leadership or ministry at Tuesday, you're winning. So don't quit, man. Don't give up. If we can help in any way, we certainly would be honored by that call. So God bless you, our watchers and listeners. We are praying for you as you continue to lead from alignment.